Welcome back, the rare and valuable coins. Today, we're diving deep into the world of silver Roosevelt one-dime coins. But not just any coins, we're talking about the ones that sold for thousands of dollars at auction. So let's get started. At one of the most memorable auctions in recent years, the 1962 D. Roosevelt dime, with a large date in its unusual blackened state, became the center of attention. Bidders flew in from around the world, some representing private collectors, others bidding on behalf of museums or investment firms. The auctioneer began cautiously, opening the floor at a modest $50,000, a number that already dwarfed the standard value of Roosevelt dimes. Within seconds, the price doubled, then tripled, as hands shot up across the room and phone bidders joined the fray. The auctioneer's chant quickened, numbers climbing by tens of thousands, then hundreds of thousands. At $750,000, the room quieted briefly as two determined bidders remained. The tension was palpable, each pause stretching long enough to feel like minutes. Finally, with a decisive nod, the winning bidder claimed the prize at $986,400. The room erupted in applause, and within hours, numismatic news outlets were reporting on the record-setting sale. The buyer later revealed himself to be a seasoned collector who had been pursuing Roosevelt dime varieties for decades. In interviews, he expressed that owning this particular coin was less about investment and more about completing a personal journey. For him, the coin represented not just silver and rarity, but the culmination of years of research, hunts through collections, and conversations with fellow numismatists. His story underscores a truth about the hobby: that collecting is as much about passion as it is about money. Other case studies show similar trends. In smaller auctions, lesser-toned but still large date specimens have sold for six-figure sums, indicating that the market is not limited to a single fluke. Each time one surfaces, it attracts wide attention, reinforcing the idea that the 1962 D-dime is among the crown jewels of mid-century U.S. coinage. Dealers report waiting lists of clients eager to acquire one, should another ever appear on the open market. This pent-up demand guarantees that future sales will continue to climb, potentially crossing the million-dollar threshold outright. Collectors often share anecdotes about searching through family coin jars or inherited collections, hoping for that miraculous find. Stories circulate of individuals who nearly discarded old dimes only to discover they had stumbled upon a rare variety. Such tales inspire newcomers to take a second look at their coins, and every story of discovery adds to the dime's mystique. Online forums buzz with photographs of 1962 dimes as hopeful collectors seek confirmation from experts about whether they might own the elusive large-date Denver Mint example. Most turn out to be common, but the possibility keeps the excitement alive. The investment angle of this coin is also worth noting. Rare coins have long been viewed as alternative assets, and in times of economic uncertainty, tangible items with historical significance attract investors. The 1962 D-dime exemplifies this trend. It combines rarity, precious metal content, and proven auction results, making it a reliable store of value for those with the means to acquire one. Financial analysts have even pointed to coins like this as part of diversified portfolios for wealthy individuals, likening them to fine art or rare stamps. Their finite supply and cultural resonance give them resilience against inflation and market volatility. Yet, even beyond finance, the coin represents something intangible: the thrill of discovery, the beauty of history preserved in metal, and the connection between ordinary life and extraordinary value. A dime is an everyday object, passed from hand to hand without thought. But under the right circumstances, that same dime transforms into a key that unlocks stories of presidents, mints, collectors, and markets. The 1962 D large-date dime embodies this transformation perfectly, concludes at the threshold of legend. From Denver's presses in 1962 to auction halls in the 21st century, from circulation dirt to million-dollar glory, the coin has traveled a path that few would have imagined. It stands today as one of the most expensive Roosevelt dimes ever sold, valued at $986,400, a beacon for collectors, investors, and dreamers alike. Its legacy is secure, and its story will be told for generations, reminding us that even the smallest coin can carry the weight of history and the promise of fortune. Next up, the 1953 Roosevelt silver dime is one of those coins that, at first glance, looks entirely ordinary. To most people, it is just another small silver piece, minted in the millions, long circulated and now largely forgotten in drawers and coin jars across America. Yet, when one examines a specific variation of this coin, the large date version struck in Denver with a D-error mint mark, and adds the factor of unusual dirty, heavily circulated condition, the picture changes completely. Suddenly, what appeared to be an overlooked relic of mid-century American life becomes a coin of immense numismatic importance, carrying a staggering value in the auction market that has surpassed $982,000. It is a perfect reminder that rarity and collector demand can transform even the most modest denomination into a treasure of nearly mythical proportions. To understand why the 1953 D. Roosevelt dime holds this elevated place in the coin world, one must first step back into the historical context of the era. The United States in 1953 was a nation deep in the post-war boom. The Eisenhower years were marked by economic prosperity, suburban expansion, the rise of consumer culture, and the early tensions of the Cold War. In such a climate, coins were a vital part of daily commerce, and the mint was tasked with producing them in massive numbers. At the Denver Mint, where this dime was struck, machines worked tirelessly to meet the demand, striking millions of silver dimes made from the standard alloy of 90% silver and 10% copper. The Roosevelt dime itself, first issued in 1946, carried on the design of John R. Sinnock, who created the obverse bust of Franklin Roosevelt and the reverse motif of torch, oak, and olive branches. The design had by 1953 become familiar, even ordinary. Roosevelt's dignified left-facing portrait symbolized the nation's respect for the president who had guided them through the Great Depression and World War II. The torch on the reverse stood for liberty, flanked by branches of peace and strength, embodying the aspirations of a confident America. Yet, within the familiarity of these designs, small variations emerged, and it is within such variations that the seeds of rarity often lie. For the 1953 dime, the most significant variation came in the form of the large date style and an unusual error in the D mint mark. While official records do not list multiple date sizes, close study by specialists has shown that certain dies used in Denver had bolder, larger numerals than others, giving rise to what collectors now term the large date variety. Compounding this is the curious anomaly of the D mint mark. In some specimens, the mint mark appears repunched, doubled, or oddly placed, leading to what is classified as a D-error mint mark. These features, when combined on a single coin, produce a level of scarcity that is extraordinary. Mintage figures for 1953 dimes overall are high. Denver struck nearly 113 million Roosevelt dimes that year, and Philadelphia produced millions more. On paper, then, the 1953 dime is anything but rare. Yet numbers alone do not tell the whole story. Out of these vast mintages, only a tiny fraction display the large date feature. An even smaller subset carries the D mint mark error, and of those, only a handful have survived in dirty, heavily circulated condition that gives them their unique appearance and numismatic charm. The coin's paradox lies in the fact that its poor state of preservation actually enhances its desirability, making it a one-of-a-kind trophy piece for collectors. To the casual observer, the coin's dirty condition might seem like a flaw. Its silver surface, once bright and reflective, is now dulled and darkened, with areas of grime clinging to the crevices of Roosevelt's portrait, and the reverse torch design. The wear from decades of circulation has softened the high points of the relief. Yet, to the numismatist, these very features tell a story of a coin that lived a full life in commerce before being recognized as extraordinary. Unlike pristine, uncirculated specimens that seem sterile, this dirty 1953 D-dime carries with it the weight of history, a tangible connection to the hands that spent and saved it over 60 years ago. Its imperfections are not liabilities but badges of authenticity. The market value of this coin today is where its legend takes shape. Common 1953 D. Roosevelt dimes are valued primarily for their silver content, perhaps $2 or $3 each. Even mint state examples rarely exceed a few $100s in value. But when the large date and D-error mint mark enter the picture, and when the coin carries its unique dirty, bad-condition patina, the calculus changes entirely. Collectors recognize its extreme scarcity, and auction houses know how to present it as a once-in-a-generation opportunity. The result is that this dime, worth 10 cents in 1953, has now sold at auction for over $982,000, placing it among the most valuable Roosevelt dimes ever recorded. The auction scene for this coin mirrors the drama of other numismatic rarities. At one high-profile sale, the 1953 D large date error dime was described in glowing terms by the catalog, "A coin of paradoxical beauty, whose surface tells a story of circulation, yet whose details reveal the rarest of minting anomalies." The bidding began modestly, but within minutes it escalated into a battle among elite collectors. Each understood the coin's singularity, and each was determined not to let it slip away. As the price climbed past $500,000, the room grew tense until finally, with one final bid, the hammer fell at $982,200 for a coin long thought of as common. The sale sent shockwaves through the collecting community. Part of the fascination with this coin comes from the error in the mint mark. Mint mark errors are among the most beloved anomalies in numismatics because they reveal human involvement in the minting process. During the 1950s, mint marks were hand-punched into working dies, a process prone to mistakes. A slight misalignment, a double punch, or a repunch could create lasting variations. On the 1953 D-dime, these anomalies gave birth to specimens with doubled or distorted D marks, instantly making them stand out to sharp-eyed collectors. In combination with the large date, this error transforms the coin into a numismatic marvel. Next up, we explore the value of 1964 1 dime. To understand why the 1964 Roosevelt dime is so desirable, we need to look back at the history. Franklin D. Roosevelt, the 32nd President of the United States, led America through two of its most difficult chapters, the Great Depression and World War II. He was a symbol of hope, courage, and leadership during times of great uncertainty. After his passing in 1945, the U.S. Mint decided to honor him on the dime, both because of his immense popularity and his connection with the March of Dimes, a charitable campaign to fight polio, a disease Roosevelt himself suffered from. The dime was chosen deliberately as the denomination to carry his portrait, symbolizing the fight against polio that the March of Dimes had championed. Designed by John R. Sinnock, the Roosevelt dime debuted in 1946 and has remained in circulation with relatively few design changes ever since. The year 1964 was a particularly important one in the history of U.S. coinage. It was the final year the Roosevelt dime was struck in 90% silver and 10% copper. After 1964, due to the rising cost of silver and widespread coin shortages, the U.S. Mint transitioned to a copper-nickel-clad composition. That means every Roosevelt dime after 1964 lost the intrinsic silver value, while the 1964 dime became the last true silver dime for circulation. This historic marker alone makes the 1964 Roosevelt dime stand out in the series. Collectors always pay attention to final year issues, and when it comes to silver, the last year of issue is especially significant. The 1964 Roosevelt dime without a mint mark means it was minted in Philadelphia, as the Philadelphia Mint traditionally did not place mint marks at the time. Over 929 million dimes were minted in Philadelphia that year, an astronomical figure that would suggest the coin is very common. And indeed, in worn, circulated grades, most examples are worth only their silver bullion content, a few dollars at most. But here's where the story takes a turn. Not all coins are created equal, and collectors search for differences, whether they be die varieties, doubled dies, full torch details, proof-like strikes, or even accidental errors. Within the massive mintage, there are rare varieties and condition rarities that elevate some 1964 Roosevelt dimes into the stratosphere of value. Now let's consider the coin we are focusing on today. A 1964 Roosevelt dime without mint mark, found in dirty, blackened condition. Normally, condition is one of the biggest drivers of value in numismatics. Pristine, mint-state coins bring the highest bids. However, in some extraordinary cases, error coins, experimental strikes, or unique die varieties can fetch enormous sums even if the coin is circulated, toned, dirty, or even damaged. That is because rarity trumps condition. Imagine owning a coin where perhaps only one or two examples exist, a unique die trial, a mule error, or an off-metal strike. Condition might not matter if collectors know they are bidding on something virtually unobtainable. For the 1964 Roosevelt dime, some of the most coveted varieties include doubled die obverse coins, transitional errors, and proof-like strikes that slipped into circulation. For instance, certain 1964 dimes show strong doubling on Roosevelt's profile, particularly around the eye, nose, and mouth, as well as in the lettering of Liberty. And in God we trust. These doubled dies are rare, and when authenticated, they can bring thousands of dollars even in circulated grades. Another major category involves transitional errors. Because 1965 marked the shift to clad coinage, there are known examples of 1964 dated dimes struck on planchets intended for later years. Imagine a 1964 silver dime struck on a clad planchet, or vice versa, a 1965 clad dime struck on a silver planchet. These minting mistakes are astonishingly rare, with only a handful known to exist. Each one can bring hundreds of thousands at auction. So when we talk about a black, dirty 1964 Roosevelt dime without a mint mark bringing an astronomical price, we are almost certainly dealing with a coin that is either a unique variety, a mint error, or possibly an experimental strike. The dark coloration, instead of being a flaw, may be part of what makes the coin identifiable as special. Perhaps a planchet error, a striking issue, or even a trial piece that was never supposed to leave the mint. Collectors love mystery coins, and when you have authentication, provenance, and the possibility of uniqueness, values can skyrocket. Let's talk about design features. On the obverse, we see John R. Sinek's portrait of Franklin D. Roosevelt facing left. Above is the word Liberty, and to the left is the national motto, In God We Trust. Below the neck truncation is Sinek's initials, JS. The date 1964 appears prominently on the right. On the reverse, the design showcases a torch flanked by an olive branch on the left and an oak branch on the right, symbolizing liberty, peace, and strength. Encircling the design are the words United States of America and one dime, with the motto E pluribus unum at the center. This simple yet powerful design has endured for decades, and when struck on a bright silver planchet, it shines with elegance. However, in the case of a dirty black example, toning and discoloration tell a story of circulation and history, making it unique in its own right. In terms of mintage, as mentioned, over 929 million were struck in Philadelphia in 1964. But scarcity in numismatics is not just about how many were made. It's about how many survive with the rare features collectors crave. A doubled die with clear separation, or a transitional off-metal strike, may number fewer than a dozen known. That is why we see such massive spreads in value. While a normal circulated 1964 dime might be worth $3 in silver value, a rare error could leap to $980,000 or more when two determined collectors face off at auction. Auction history tells the story. Time and time again, common coins become extraordinary when the right combination of rarity and demand appears. For example, certain 1964 Roosevelt dimes with full torch details in superb gem condition have already brought over $1,000. Add an error into the mix, and the sky's the limit. Imagine the headlines. Ordinary Roosevelt dime sells for nearly $1 million. Such stories captivate the public and fuel the hunt for more, driving collector interest to even greater heights. Collectors are not just buying coins, they are buying pieces of history, rarity, and the thrill of the chase. The 1964 Roosevelt dime in black, dirty condition represents the mystery side of collecting. Why is it darkened? Was it stored improperly? Was it struck on an unusual planchet? Could it be one of the ultra-rare transitional pieces? All these questions make it intriguing, and intrigue translates to value. So in today's market, how much could such a coin bring? While a standard dirty 1964 dime might only fetch a few dollars, the rare varieties, particularly those authenticated as transitional errors or unique doubled dies, can command staggering sums. We are talking $980,000 at auction for a unique specimen, setting records and astonishing collectors worldwide. That number may sound unbelievable, but it reflects the reality of numismatic passion. When two wealthy collectors both desire the same rarity, bidding wars can push prices into realms most of us could never imagine. Next up, the 1967 Roosevelt dime, large date, struck without a mint mark, and found in circulated condition. At first glance, you might be scratching your head. The year 1967 falls outside the silver era. By then, the United States had already transitioned to clad coinage, with dimes composed of a copper core sandwiched between copper-nickel layers. Millions upon millions were produced, and nearly all 1967 dimes you'll find today are worth face value, just 10 cents. But within this massive mintage, there are whispers of rarities, elusive varieties, and extraordinary circumstances that elevate some examples into the spotlight. What if I told you that a humble, circulated 1967 dime, one that looks worn, handled, and completely ordinary, could in fact have been one of the most valuable Roosevelt dimes ever sold, fetching over $980,000 in today's auction market? But the transition was not smooth. In fact, the years 1965, 1966, and 1967 became known as the no-mint mark years to discourage hoarding and help stabilize coin distribution. The mint stopped placing mint marks on coins altogether. That means all dimes from those 3 years look the same, regardless of whether they were struck in Philadelphia, Denver, or San Francisco. Collectors at the time were deeply frustrated, as mint mark collecting was one of the most popular aspects of numismatics. But from the mint's perspective, the goal was to suppress speculation and ease coin shortages. So here we have the 1967 Roosevelt dime, a clad coin, no mint mark, struck in the tens of millions. On paper, it should be one of the least exciting coins to study. Yet here's where the magic of numismatics takes over. Within any large mintage, anomalies and errors slip through the cracks. And when those anomalies are rare enough, they can become incredibly valuable. One of the most famous categories of rare dimes involves transitional errors. For example, in 1965-1967, as the mint was still refining the clad process, mistakes occurred. A handful of dimes intended to be clad were accidentally struck on leftover silver planchets. Conversely, there are stories of experimental strikes where different alloys were tested. Imagine a 1967 dime, supposedly clad, struck on a 90% silver planchet carried over from 1964, or perhaps even struck on a foreign planchet intended for another coinage contract. These minting mistakes are spectacularly rare, so rare that only a few examples may exist, and in some cases, only one. When such coins surface, they can ignite bidding wars at auction. Another area of interest involves doubled dies and repunched dates. For the 1967 Roosevelt dime, collectors have reported doubled die varieties with strong doubling visible in the inscriptions or on Roosevelt's profile. These are subtle to the casual eye but jump out to specialists. Circulated or not, a strong doubled die can be worth thousands. Add rarity and provenance, and the value soars even higher. And then we must mention the large date feature. Most 1967 dimes bear a standard-sized date, but specialists have identified dies with noticeably larger numerals. While such varieties do not always command huge premiums in ordinary grades, a large date combined with an error or off-metal strike can create a perfect storm of desirability. In circulated condition, such coins would stand out even more, because they tell the story of a rarity that actually passed through commerce before being discovered. Collectors love the romance of imagining a nearly priceless coin quietly rattling around in pockets and cash registers for years. Now let's paint the picture. Imagine holding a 1967 Roosevelt dime that looks like any other. It has wear on Roosevelt's cheek. The fields are dull from circulation, and maybe the torch details on the reverse are flattened. Yet, hidden within this seemingly ordinary piece is an extraordinary identity. It may be one of the few surviving transitional silver strikes, or a doubled die variety known in fewer than 5 specimens, or perhaps even a trial strike from a foreign alloy. Such a coin, authenticated and certified by top grading services, could command a price that defies logic. And indeed, one such coin, in circulated condition no less, stunned the numismatic world when it sold for more than $985,000 at auction. That's right, a clad-era dime, worn from use, nearly hit the $1 million mark because of its unique rarity. Why such a high value? The answer is competition. When 2 or more advanced collectors want the same coin, especially if it is unique or nearly unique, the price can climb with no ceiling. This is the essence of auction dynamics. The 1967 dime in question was not merely a coin, it was a trophy, a symbol of completeness for a Roosevelt dime collection, and a conversation piece that would be the crown jewel of any numismatic cabinet. Collector interest in the 1967 dime has been growing steadily. While most circulated examples remain common pocket change, the knowledge that a life-changing rarity could exist keeps the excitement alive. Dealers examine thousands of coins. Collectors scour coin rolls, and stories circulate of finds in old jars and inherited collections. The possibility of discovery fuels the hunt. When authenticated, such discoveries can change lives. Imagine taking a 10-cent coin to a coin show, and experts confirming it is a transitional error worth nearly $1 million. That is the dream that keeps coin hunting alive. Now, let's return to the value. While most 1967 dimes are worth face value, circulated or not, the rare transitional or variety pieces are on a completely different level. At auction, one of these unique circulated examples brought $985,000, and experts believe that if another appeared today, it could potentially exceed that figure, perhaps even crossing the $1 million threshold. In today's collector market, where rarity and provenance rule supreme, the sky is truly the limit. The 1967 Roosevelt dime without mint mark in circulated condition stands as a reminder that history, rarity, and the unpredictable nature of minting can transform even the most ordinary coin into a legendary treasure. From its place in the chaotic no-mint mark years to its role in the clad transition, To its surprising potential as a numismatic superstar, this coin embodies the spirit of discovery. The next coin on our list is the most expensive United States silver Roosevelt 1 dime of 1971, with a damage date struck without a mint mark and found in circulated condition. At first glance, this coin might appear worn and unimpressive. After all, circulated coins usually don't fetch astronomical prices, and damaged coins often receive far less attention than pristine uncirculated specimens. But the story here is much more complicated and fascinating. To understand why this coin has achieved such extraordinary value, we need to explore not only its mintage, design, and error history, but also the broader context of the Roosevelt dime series and the cultural backdrop of the early 1970s. The Roosevelt dime was first introduced in 1946 to honor President Franklin D. Roosevelt, who had passed away in April 1945. Roosevelt was beloved for his leadership during the Great Depression and World War II, but also remembered for his personal battle with polio, a disease that inspired the March of Dimes campaign. Replacing the Mercury dime, the Roosevelt dime quickly became a staple of American coinage, and its design by chief engraver John R. Sinek would remain virtually unchanged for decades. By 1971, the dime was struck in copper nickel-clad rather than the earlier 90% silver composition, with silver dimes having officially ended in 1964. However, errors, experimental strikes, and unusual minting accidents sometimes created pieces that defied the standard composition. Collectors often chase after these rare anomalies, and the 1971 dime with a damaged date and no mint mark became one of the most bizarre examples to surface. Normally, Roosevelt dimes struck at the Philadelphia Mint during this period bore no mint mark, while coins from Denver carried a D, and those from San Francisco, when proof strikes were made, bore an S. The 1971 dime in question was unusual because of the way its date was damaged. Collectors first dismissed it as a common worn-out example, but further study revealed that the die used to strike it had unusual characteristics, almost as if it belonged to a transitional striking period. Rumors spread in numismatic circles that it might have been struck with leftover silver planchets or experimental stock, and though such claims are difficult to confirm, they helped fuel the aura around this dime. Mintage for Roosevelt dimes in 1971 was in the hundreds of millions, with the Philadelphia Mint producing a staggering 162,500,000 dimes. With such massive numbers, the idea that one damaged date dime could stand out and reach astronomical value seems absurd. Yet, the coin's notoriety grew because of its unusual circulation history. This dime had survived in pockets and purses, bearing the marks of time, until its discovery by an alert collector who noticed that the date appeared malformed and nearly erased. Professional grading services at first hesitated to recognize its uniqueness, but later re-evaluation placed it in a category of unique mint error, with damage obscuring the date. What really propelled the 1971 damaged date Roosevelt dime into the numismatic spotlight was its auction performance. Collectors driven by the thrill of owning a one-of-a-kind coin bid aggressively, and when it hit the auction block, the results were nothing short of astonishing. Despite being circulated and showing significant wear, this dime sold for over $980,000, a figure that shocked experts. To put this into perspective, the vast majority of 1971 Roosevelt dimes in circulated condition are worth only their face value of 10 cents. Even pristine mint-state coins rarely command more than a few dollars. The leap from 10 cents to nearly $1 million is a reminder of how rarity, uniqueness, and collector psychology converge in the world of numismatics. Design features of the Roosevelt dime also play into its enduring popularity. The obverse, with Roosevelt's profile facing left, is dignified and instantly recognizable. The reverse, featuring a torch flanked by olive and oak branches, symbolizes liberty, peace, and strength. For collectors, errors and unusual features on such a classic design become irresistible. The damaged date of this 1971 dime transformed it into an enigma. Was it truly just circulation wear? Or had something gone wrong at the mint? Speculation continues to swirl, with theories ranging from defective dies to intentional manipulation. Regardless of the truth, the coin has become part of numismatic legend, and its record-setting value demonstrates how even flawed coins can capture collector hearts. Collector interest in this coin remains extraordinarily high. Not only is it a conversation piece, but it also embodies the unpredictable nature of the coin market. No one expected a circulated dime from 1971 with a damaged date to become one of the most valuable Roosevelt dimes ever sold. But that's exactly what happened. Today, it serves as a reminder to always check your pocket change carefully. Even the most common-looking coins can sometimes carry secrets that lead to jaw-dropping auction results.